Three major Ivy League schools in the United States received bomb threats over the weekend. Officials at Cornell, Columbia, and Brown universities ordered partial campus evacuations following the threats. To discuss this in more detail is American journalist and one of our regular contributors, Lisa Daftari, joining once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, has anyone claimed responsibility? Were the bomb threats connected? And really, what do we know at this point?
Yeah, so they turned out to be nothing, but obviously you can't take a bomb threat lightly. It turned out that they were all around the same time Sunday evening at the universities. They evacuated partially in certain areas of the campus. They wanted to obviously be very vigilant of these threats. And there was a similar threat made at Yale University Friday afternoon. So they're thinking that because of the style of the threat, these are all connected. Thankfully, they turned out to be nothing, but obviously this is a serious matter. And they're trying to really pinpoint the root of it and where this threat comes from and to prevent it from happening again at future universities.
Yeah, you got to take that seriously, absolutely. Now, Lisa, the Biden administration is reportedly thinking of shutting down yet another oil pipeline, this one in Michigan. And it's drawing criticism not only from north of the border here in Canada, especially in Alberta, when we're all about oil and gas here for the most part, but also with many of his opponents as well. A lot of people are not happy about the potential of another pipeline being shut down.
Yeah, if you remember how this was a major issue during the campaign, and President Biden, then candidate Biden, came out and said, I got you. This is not something that's going to happen. And it's happening. And it's happening in swing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and other places where this is an issue. The energy secretary from the Biden administration went on CNN this weekend to say, listen, heating prices will go up this winter regardless. It's going to be an unprecedented high. So don't worry. It's not as if this is going to be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. So don't worry about this particular pipeline being shut down. That's not what people want to hear. This is not what constituents want to hear. This is not what opponents want to hear. And I think it's going to really show in the polls. If you look at the polls of approval polls, President Biden is under 40%. Kamala Harris is under 30%. And again, these are repeated from different left, right, center polling, companies and groups and outlets, media outlets. So, it's people are upset. Look, you vote on your life, on your job, on your, the ease of getting basic goods. When you go to the gas pump, you feel it. You want to get basic goods, you feel it. You want to do construction on your home, you feel it. And now this is going to be jobs. This is people's livelihoods. So it's really a serious matter, and I think a lot of people are voicing that.
Let's talk about Biden's approval rating, like you said, dropping to a new low below 40%, actually at 38% right now. Is it safe to say that maybe the honeymoon is over in the United States? Outside of, let's say, canceling oil pipelines, what else do you think is contributing to the low approval rating? Maybe the vaccine rollouts?
Yeah, a lot of things. And I think it's very soon early on to have this honeymoon phase be over, right? Look, President Biden didn't have to do much to get elected. He didn't come out to say much. He was hiding in his basement for most of the time. He was all about being safe about the pandemic. And even now, he doesn't do many press briefings. He tries to stay off the mic. His team doesn't want him to do, ad lib, Q&A with journalists. So, it's the actions, right? So it's when people go again to the gas pumps. It's when people are, paying taxes. It's when people have a hard time when they go to the grocery store and they see the inflation prices and they see how basic goods cost multiple times what they were costing before. We look at the ports and how many containers of goods are lining up to come inside to the country. We're looking at all these things, including what's happening in Afghanistan, including what's happening at our schools, more importantly, the mandates. January 4th coming up, a lot of companies are coming under the gun. If you have over 100 employees, you have to, instate this vaccine mandate, which is to be vaccinated, show proof of vaccination rather, or show a weekly test. And a lot of employees are going to choose medical freedom over their jobs. And that's a very sad choice to have to make, to even be pressured to make that choice, especially in this economy. So it's a mess. And there are a lot of jobs, by the way, but not too many people who want to work. So the stimulus after the pandemic and, the people don't want to go back to work. It's created very chaotic society here. So of course it's showing in the polls.
Lisa, Iran's military launched an exercise near the Gulf recently, a few weeks before the U.S. and Tehran resumed talks to potentially revive the 2015 nuclear deal. Now, this will no doubt heighten tensions between the two countries.
Yeah, you'd think, right, Hal? But who knows if it really will. There have been so many provocations from the Iranian regime, flexing their muscles. Talk about, trying to sweeten the deal before you sit down at the negotiating table. Try to be kinder, try to be nicer, try to at least put on a fake facade of kindness or of, a softer facade, right? And that's the difference right now. So if we rewind back to the Obama administration when they were trying to get into the Iran nuclear, you had a President Rouhani in Iran who was that wolf in sheep's clothing. At least he came out to say, flowery rhetoric, and now they want to change and they want to work with the international community, and they got a deal. Now, Iran is under a very hardline president, President Raisi, who is actually going full force and saying, this is who we are. We're going to double down on who we are. We're going to enrich uranium to an unprecedented level. We are going to do our military drills. We're going to flex our muscles, and you're going to sit down at the table and you're going to get back into the Obama era JCPOA, and you're going to like it. And that's the tone that we're hearing out of Tehran. But again, let's see if it actually makes a difference. Up to now, the presence of all of this chest thumping has been, really inconvenient for the Biden administration, who is really jonesing to get back into this deal. So let's see if it ultimately allows them to sit down and get back into a deal, or if it will really be that setback that we think it ought to be.
Now, let's also talk about that brazen drone attack on the home of Iraq's prime minister. Lisa, the attack marked more escalation between Iraq and Iran as Iran-backed militant groups are attempting to overturn last month's election.
Right. So this is the Iranian regime exerting its influence in Iraq. This was an assassination attempt on the prime minister. It was near his home. It was near the front of his home. Many of his guards were injured. He actually suffered some minor injuries as well. Look, if this were actually to be a successful attempt, it would be the Iranian regime assassinating a prime minister to fully take over the country. Now, we know that Iran's regime has its claws in Iraq. We know that the United States went in there 20 years ago to make a difference. We brought down Saddam Hussein. We wanted to, instate some real nation-building differences that would allow the Iraqi people to really determine their own future. And instead, we paved the way for the Iranian regime to come in. We served it up on a silver platter. We let them come in, and these insurgencies now not only have a place in government, they want the whole thing. And this assassination attempt really underscores the appetite that the Iranian regime has in Iraq and what the consequences may be.
Morocco is apparently interested in purchasing Israel's Iron Dome in order to defend against aerial threats. Now, according to the Jerusalem Post, it's a deal that's unlikely to be signed anytime soon.
Yeah, well, that's the company that was interviewed for that part of it, where it's not going to be signed anytime soon, is a naysayer, because obviously on the ground in Morocco, there is some pushback as to why Morocco's government got into the Abraham Accords with Israel, obviously normalizing relations with that country with a list of other countries. And the announcement that Morocco is actually interested in the Iron Dome technology is actually a sign that the Abraham Accords are alive and well, and they are making significant changes in the Middle East. Not just a piece of paper, but real economic exchange, tourism, and more. And of course, as you know, the Iron Dome is a technological system that protects Israel and now perhaps Morocco with a technology, and we've actually brought some of it to the United States here. It is a laser shield that protects against, missiles and such. So Morocco needs this against the terrorist insurgencies that have begun to attack it from Algeria for years now, and they've voiced interest. This is not anything new. Obviously, the countries that have signed on to the Abraham Accords, they understand the technological advances that Israel does have, the apps, the phones, the hospital and medical technologies that they have, and they want a piece of that. And why not? Why shouldn't the Middle East advance with peace, prosperity, and economic development? And that's exactly what we're seeing here.
State media in North Korea says that country has been conducting artillery firing exercises to bolster its defense capability. Lisa, many observers say it's Pyongyang's attempt to pressure Washington and Seoul to abandon what it calls their hostile policy.
Yeah, so much for their nuclear diplomacy in Washington. This is North Korea's way of getting our attention is to conduct more drills. Going back to the story about the drills of the Iranian regime is conducting, look at what's happening all across the map. When there is not a strong voice coming out of Washington, D.C., the enemies will chest them. They will try to get our attention by showing their might. And you can talk about China or North Korea or the Iranian regime or any other country trying to really establish its power, its motivation, what it wants for the future by doing these drills. And that's exactly what this is. It's a visual. It is an announcement, right? If it's only symbolic, it's quite significant to say that the North Koreans are saying this is what we're doing and this is what we will continue to do. And we're not hearing anything out of Washington with regards to North Korea, and that's perhaps because we are so insular right now, looking at the crises inside the country, that we're failing on our foreign policy here, and we're actually failing to have a tone, at least for foreign policy, that lets our enemies know that we will not tolerate this behavior.
Any talk of a potential meeting between North Korea's Kim and Joe Biden?
I think there's such a rift, right? The last time we heard anything at the podium about North Korea, it was to use nuclear diplomacy. And I remember this term being, it's funny to my ears, because when you look at a rogue nation like North Korea, again, or like the Iranian regime, you have to throw diplomacy out the window or take it with a grain of salt. Look at who you're dealing with, look at your opponent, and deal with them in the way that you should deal with them. Of course, there should be diplomacy. Diplomacy should be part of any, strategic plan foreign policy. But when you look at the North Koreans, when they're conducting these drills, when they're making announcements every day about, furthering their nuclear program or furthering the way that they behave in the region, then you know that you have to take a different position. And I thought, Donald Trump actually made a good start at this, because he started one way and said, you know what, let's do this the nice way. And then when he saw that the North Koreans weren't looking to concede, they weren't looking to compromise, then he pivoted a bit. It didn't get anywhere, and we don't know if there would have been a second term where that would have gone. Perhaps it would have worked or not. But again, the point being that we have to pivot our position when we look at our opponent and look at how they are behaving vis-a-vis the crisis at hand.
Lisa, when it comes to military might, and in particular on the high seas, one would always associate that with the United States and the United States military. But the Chinese Navy is now apparently the largest maritime force on the planet, boasting a total of 355 vessels. Now, that's according to a recent report by the U.S. Defense Department. Should we in North America be concerned about this?
We actually dedicated a very big portion of our website this morning to this story at the Foreign Desk, because it is, it's like, pay attention, everyone pay attention. It's like, while we are so insular and looking at, of course, expecting that the United States would be number one. And while we are dealing with all of these, the pandemic and the economic crisis, and we're looking inside to ourselves, China is marching on, and China is growing its might. And they've made it known to us that they're not only looking to grow economically, but they're looking to grow and expand their influence in the region. They're building their military, their cyber military, and of course, their Navy being number one right now. So this is, of course, very alarming. This is something that the West should pay attention to, should unite on, and not allow this to go any further. We know what China's agenda is. They're not shy about putting it out there, but we have to decide what we want to do about it and how we're going to combat that.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks for joining us today from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.